Hi, folks. This is Dr. Rob Cywes, the Carb Addiction Doc, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Janae, the Carb Addiction Mom. And today, what we're going to discuss is the pressure from the surrounding world when they find out we're on a ketogenic journey with our pregnancy. Clearly, pregnancy is a highly emotive topic, and everybody's an expert. Everybody has advice. Everybody did it this way, and you must do the same. And we appreciate the advice, but sometimes it can be a little bit misguided, and sometimes in the overzealousness of people trying to protect this growing baby and protect the mother, they're pretty darn adamant about the advice that they give or the demonization of what we're doing. Hey, you know what the cool part is, though, is that if you look at Janae, she doesn't even look pregnant. And like most guys know, don't ever ask a woman if she's pregnant when she's actually fat. So very few people are going to ask that question. So the cool part is if you just look at Janae, she doesn't look pregnant at all. So we've been able to avoid a lot of that. But because we're fairly outspoken in our dietary approach based on the evidence, not the belief, but the evidence of the natural healthy human diet being a well-formulated ketogenic diet, Janae has had to battle keto pressure. And I'm going to hand this talk over to her so that she can discuss how she's handled it, what's come at her from our relatives, from our friends, all well-meaning, but how critical and how difficult it has been to navigate some of that criticism.
Okay, so we actually had a comment on one of our videos asking about our wedding reception. So I'm going to rewind a little bit to talk about that because it plays into the same topic. So somebody had asked if we actually had carbohydrates at our wedding. So I will tell you that when we met with the caterers, they were absolutely shocked because, we were having your typical meats, your fish, your chicken, your steak, and then we said no rice, no potatoes, no dinner rolls. And they were floored because they had never heard this before. So we sort of explained, well, this is how we do in our life. It's our lifestyle. So, that's what we'd like at our wedding. And so they obliged, and we went on to the wedding, and I guess they got a lot of comments from our guest about not having dinner rolls, no rice, no potatoes, etc. On the buffet. And so the caterers, I guess, sort of kindly or as well as they could explain, well, because Janae and Rob don't do that, this is what they wanted for their food. But we did say, because it was a wedding, obviously an occasion of celebration, that we would provide dessert. And of course, you have to have a wedding cake. So we actually did several different kinds of desserts. Our wedding was in the Florida Keys, which we love. It's our favorite place. And so we did little mini key lime pie pastries. We did this really good moist carrot cake, sort of like a groom's cake. And then we did the traditional wedding cake so that we could fake feed each other. Well, I fake fed him. I actually had a bite of it. The piece of cake. So anyway, when the wedding was kind of winding down, I had asked the wonderful event planner that we had for our wedding if she would just make sure to get one piece of carrot cake for us that we could have that evening in our room afterward. And so she did, and I didn't realize at the time, but people had really enjoyed the dessert because there wasn't any carbohydrates on the actual food buffet. So when we went back, and I didn't know any of this, when we went back to our room, Rob was, I guess, saying goodbye to some more guests, and I saw the piece of carrot cake that our wedding planner had very kindly set aside for me, and I wolfed it down before I was able to give Rob even a bite of it, because it was my favorite cake, and he had never tried it, so I wanted to give him just one little piece. But I finished it, and I kept thinking, okay, I'll just get another piece tomorrow that he can have a bite of. Well, lo and behold, because we didn't have any carbohydrates on our buffet at all, I guess the dessert table got completely wiped out. And we had probably, the wedding planner said, 3 times the amount of desserts than she'd ever seen at a wedding. But people were, I guess, were so desperate for the carbohydrates that they completely wiped out the dessert buffet. And I didn't find out till the next day that there was absolutely not a morsel left. And so I guess I'm a really bad wife because or a good wife.
Good wife. Yeah. No diabetes, no obesity at our wedding for me.
Exactly. So that's just the precursor story. But as Rob said, there are a lot of pressures from the outside world about the diet, especially while being pregnant. And I think for us, we've just had to stay true to our core, lifestyle approach to it. Also, when I travel for work and entertain a lot, there's oftentimes people asking why I'm not taking bread from the bread basket or having dessert. And so I use it as an opportunity to just educate a little bit about the lifestyle. Sometimes people are really interested and they ask more and more questions, or sometimes you'll find somebody in the group that actually does the same thing. I met a nurse in San Francisco earlier this year who actually had been advised by a cardiologist to try carnivore, and so that was like a really cool connection for us. So there are occasional instances of that, but by and large, you just kind of have to explain why you do it. There's good science behind it, the biology behind it, and move on. But there are going to be a lot of people who offer their opinions. The other thing I would say is, even prior to being pregnant, we like to have friends over and entertain. So we'll have barbecues at our house or dinner parties, etc. And people often, maybe don't know that we do keto, or if they're kind of new joiners to the group, haven't heard our story yet. So they'll be kind of surprised that we don't have carbohydrates at the house. But one of the things that Rob always says, which I think is a good point, is that you'll never go to a vegan's house that just has meat sitting around because you're coming over. So that's kind of like us. I try to warn people ahead of time, hey, if we're having a barbecue, if you want to bring your own hamburger buns, hot dog buns, that's fine. We don't have them at the house. So feel free to bring them if you want them. And then again, we're happy to share our story once they do come over if they're interested. But if not, we just let it go. But I don't want to actually buy those and have them at the house, because unfortunately I have seen, if we have leftover hot dog buns, let's say, this one will try to sliver it up into slices of bread and make a grilled cheese out of it or something. I mean, there are things that happen when there's leftovers around, even though, we could try to throw it out, but it usually doesn't happen. So we just ask that, if people want to bring it, it's fine. And then they take it with them when they leave.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, is that, and you've heard us talk about this before, I'm a carb addict. As much as I work in the space, I also have to recognize where I'm at, and we want to preemptively make those corrections. So Janae now knows if they ever come to the house, they've got to be gone, and not just thrown in the garbage, because I'll go and fish them out. They've got to be flushed down the toilet or utterly destroyed, that even me would not go after them again. And that's what she's so good at doing, is protecting me from myself. And it's quite amazing. And I know that, you should be better than this and you should be. The reality is I'm not. So I have that compassion for other people that have the same struggles. And it's not every time. But all it takes is one vulnerability, and that's a crash and burn for a whole long time. And we really want to sustain this as a lifestyle. The only other comment that I'll make also about Janae is she works in a people field. So she's got literally thousands of colleagues. I think, 600,000 colleagues? How many?
400,000.
Sorry, 400,000. 400,000 people that work for Janae's company. And also she's in hospitals all the time with other healthcare providers. And she doesn't really speak up front about her ketogenic diet, but she eats that way. And a lot of her work involves entertainment. It involves lunches and dinners. And I kid her about this. The number of potential patients that I've lost from her company and from her colleagues and from the people she works with, because she's dispensing all my advice for free, is ridiculous. But the number of thankful people that have engaged in a ketogenic way of life because of the way she's talked to them and the way she's coached them and helped them to understand the value. These are all people that have thought about it, but also that weren't quite ready to pull the trigger on it. And just by watching her and seeing how well she can eat without carbohydrates, that's made all the difference. So there literally are, every week, new and more converts to a ketogenic way of life. And she's just done an amazing job with that. So yes, there is a lot of peer pressure. Yes, there is a lot of raised eyebrows. Far more than if she was vegetarian or gluten-free or wasn't eating pork or whatever it may be, all the other religious discretions, or was cutting the fat off her food while she was eating a ton of carbohydrates. Those are all totally tolerable and acceptable. But keto has not been, although more and more and more, We are seeing it accepted. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these videos with pregnancy, is for us to say, look, this is the way to go with a healthy pregnancy. And we're doing that experiment. We're doing that experiment. You'll follow the outcome with us. I hope this helps you to deal with keto pressure and understand how that works and make decisions so that you don't have to make choices.